So I've got this report in front of me today, and it really reads less like a typical aviation update and more like, I don't know, a high-stakes threat to an entire country's economy.
Hmm.
But the really interesting part is who wrote it. It's not from an insurgency group, not some hostile government. It's from the boardrooms of three of the biggest airlines in the world.
Yeah, and that's what gives you a very specific kind of chill, doesn't it? When you see these names on a document. We're not talking about some budget airline complaining about airport fees.
Not at all. No, this is a deep dive into a really serious standoff at Aden Ad International Airport in Mogadishu. The headline alone is pretty alarming. Major airlines raise alarm over security. But when you actually get into the details, the subtext is, frankly, terrifying.
Mm.
You've got Turkish Airlines, Qatar Airways, and Ethiopian Airlines, the
The
heavyweights.
absolute heavyweights for that region.
And they are essentially threatening to cut Somalia's main link to the rest of the planet.
And it's not a vague threat. That's the key thing here. This is a very calculated, very deliberate ultimatum. They're saying, look, the security situation has gotten so bad that the risk of flying our planes into Mogadishu is just, it's becoming unjustifiable.
So today, that's what we're going to dig into. How did we get to this point? We need to look at what these airlines are actually warning about, this baffling silence from the local aviation authority and, the absolute disaster that could unfold if these planes actually stop landing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you pull on that one threat flight suspension, the whole thing just unravels.
Yeah.
Trade, diplomacy, all of it.
That's exactly the right way to look at it. An airport like Aden Ad, it isn't just a piece of infrastructure. In a place like Somalia, it's the central nervous system. And if you sever that nerve,
Yeah.
the whole system is in trouble.
Okay, so let's start with the players.
Yeah.
Because the context here is everything. I mean, if this was a small charter company saying it's too risky, you might just brush it off.
Yeah.
But this list,
Right, just look at the roster. Turkish, Qatar, Ethiopian. These are global giants in aviation. But for Somalia, they are, well, they're titans. Turkish and Qatar are the main bridge to Europe, the Middle East, the rest of the world.
it's how the diaspora gets home.
It's how the diaspora gets home. It's how diplomats and aid workers get in. And Ethiopian Airlines is, the powerhouse of African aviation. Their hub connects the entire continent.
Turkish Airlines, to me, really stands out here. I mean, Turkey has invested so much aid development in Somalia for years. The airport terminal itself is run by a Turkish company.
Very crucial point.
So for them to be on this letter saying this is unsafe, that feels less like a safety memo and more like a diplomatic earthquake.
It is. That's a great way to put it. Turkish Airlines is almost an extension of Turkish foreign policy. They fly where the government wants a presence. So for them to join this, it suggests the reality on the ground has just become overwhelming.
So the operational risk is now trumping the political will to be there.
Precisely. It's crossed a red line that even, strong diplomatic ties can't just smooth over anymore.
So what is the grievance exactly?
Hmm.
The source says they submitted formal concerns. I'm guessing this isn't about the quality of the coffee in the lounge.
No, not even close. The phrase they use is worsening security conditions. Now, for anyone listening, we need to translate that out of corporate speak.
Right.
When an airline security director says that about an airport like Mogadishu, they're not talking about long security lines. They're worried about the perimeter fence. They're worried about the screaming of the ground crew loading the bags onto the plane. They're worried about the very real risk of mortar fire hitting the runway.
And the report specifically calls out direct threats to passengers, flight crews, and aircraft.
And that phrase, threat to aircraft, that's the one that stops everything. A modern airplane is it's a $250 million asset.
Wow.
It is a tube full of jet fuel and people. It's incredibly vulnerable on the ground. If an airline security team believes there's a credible threat to the plane itself, the discussion is just over. You don't gamble with that.
And what about the human side? This is flight crews as well.
That's the other half of it. Pilot and cabin crew unions are incredibly powerful, and rightly so. If they feel their members are staying in a hotel that isn't secure or the drive to the airport is too dangerous, they can refuse to fly the route.
And the airline can't make them.
The airline cannot force them. So when they cite threats to the crew, they're also signaling that their own staff are reaching a breaking point.
There's another phrase in here that I think is the real key to this whole thing. It mentions liability risks. Now, that sounds like boring legal jargon, but I have a feeling that's the real smoking gun.
It's the absolute fulcrum of this decision. Think about how this works. Airlines operating in these zones have massive insurance policies. It's called war risk insurance. It is incredibly expensive.
Mhm.
But here's the catch. If that airline's own security team writes a formal report saying, we have identified specific unmitigated threats at this location, and the airline keeps flying anyway.
Uh-oh. They're knowingly taking the risk.
Exactly. And if something terrible were to happen and it comes out that they knew it was unsafe, the insurance company will say, sorry, that policy is void. The liability would be catastrophic. It's corporate suicide.
So by submitting these formal concerns, they're creating a paper trail. They're basically putting the SCAA on notice.
They're putting them on the clock. They're saying, we are now on the record. We've told you the house is on fire. If you don't do something, we are legally and financially compelled to leave.
Wow, that completely reframes it. It's not just that they're worried, it's that their own lawyers are probably telling them they have to be ready to pull out.
Precisely. The moment you formalize the fear, the countdown begins.
So this countdown is on. And it wasn't just an email. The source says they held detailed briefings with senior officials at the Somali Civil Aviation Authority, the SCAA.
Yeah, they sat them down, face to face. They would have laid out the specific intelligence, the specific threats. This was not a vague complaint.
And this is where the story, for me, just gets baffling. You have your three biggest international partners telling you your house is on fire. You'd think the SCA would be rushing out with fire extinguishers, holding press conferences.
You'd expect some kind of action. You know, visible things, more patrols, new checkpoints, even just a public statement saying, we take this seriously and here's what we're doing.
But the report says nothing.
It says the SCAA has not introduced clear measures and has not issued a concrete response.
And no public statement at all.
Just silence.
Why? I mean, we can only speculate, but what are the possible reasons for an aviation authority to just go quiet in a moment like this?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And none of the possibilities are good. One could be just bureaucratic paralysis. The SCAA might agree there's a problem, but they don't have the power to order the police or the military to actually fix it.
So the airport authority is on board, but they can't actually command the people with the guns.
It's a very common problem in fragile states. The airport director doesn't control the army guarding the perimeter. Another possibility is just denial. Admitting you have a huge security failure is, well, it's an admission of state failure. They might be hoping if they just stay quiet, the whole thing blows over.
They're calling the airlines bluff.
They could be, but like we just discussed with the liability issue, that is a very, very dangerous game to play. The airlines aren't bluffing here. Their lawyers won't let them.
And that silence itself is a message, isn't it? If you're the CEO of an airline and you send an urgent security warning and get nothing back, you're not thinking, oh, good, they must be working hard on it.
No, you're thinking they either don't get it, they don't care, or they can't fix it. In aviation, silence is seen as incompetence. A lack of communication proves the risk is unmanaged. It actually makes them want to leave faster.
Okay, let's talk about the so what. What happens if they actually do it? If Turkish, Qatar, and Ethiopian suspend flights to Mogadishu, what does that look like on day one?
The term used in the source is domino effect, and it is spot on. Let's start with the pure economics. The report mentions travel and trade. Now, air freight to a place like Somalia isn't about, shipping grain.
Right, that comes by sea.
This is about high-value, time-sensitive goods. We're talking about medicines,
Vital supplies, yeah.
vaccines, spare parts for hospital equipment, electronics, urgent documents, the stuff that keeps a modern city functioning. That all comes in the cargo hold of these passenger jets. If Turkish Airlines stops flying, you lose tons of cargo capacity overnight.
And the movement of people must be a huge blow to the diaspora.
It's a massive blow to them, and they are a huge source of investment and remittances. But think about the international community, the UN, the NGOs, the embassies. Their staff have really strict travel policies.
So their insurance requires them to fly on major, recognized carriers.
Exactly. They can't just hop on any small charter flight. If the safe airlines pull out, the aid workers can't get in, diplomats can't rotate out, potential investors just cancel their trips. You are effectively padlocking the capital city.
The source says it would weaken the country's aviation sector. That feels like a massive understatement.
It's a very polite way of saying it would poison the well for a generation. Aviation is all about trust. If a global carrier like Turkish Airlines officially declares an airport a no-go zone, that label sticks. It's like a warning sign for the entire industry.
So other smaller airlines might follow their lead.
Their insurers will probably force them to. They'll say, look, if it's too risky for Turkish, it's definitely too risky for you. you trigger a cascade. And once you lose those routes, getting them back it's incredibly difficult. It could take years of proven stability.
And this connects right to the diplomatic damage the report talks about,
Yeah.
the blow to Somalia's international image.
Absolutely. Think about what a major international airport is. It's the front door to your country. When you have the world's flag carriers landing there every day, it's a sign of legitimacy. It says, we are stable, we are open for business.
It's a powerful symbol of progress.
Exactly. Somalia has worked for decades to shed that failed state image. The presence of these airlines is proof of that hard work paying off. If they leave because of security, you're basically telling the world the state can't even secure its own gateway. It's a huge propaganda win for the insurgents.
That's a brutal point. They don't even have to successfully attack a plane. They just have to create enough of a threat that the airlines leave on their own.
That is the nature of this kind of conflict. The threat alone, if the government can't counter it, achieves the goal of isolation.
So where do we stand now? The source calls it an ultimatum.
Yes, the language is very clear. Without immediate improvements, maintaining operations may no longer be possible. And that word immediate is key.
They're not asking for a 5-year strategic plan.
No, they want to see action now. They want to see more guards, better screening, something tangible that can show their own boards and their insurance companies to say the risk has been reduced.
And at this moment, the ball is 100% in the SCAA's court.
Completely. The airlines have made their move. They've laid out the problem and the consequence. Now the SCAA has to decide. Do they pay the price to fix security? Or do they accept the price of being cut off?
The total stare down. And in these situations, the side with the airplanes, the mobile assets, usually wins. They can just fly their planes somewhere else. Mogadishu can't just move its airport.
That is the harsh reality of it. The airlines have options. Somalia, in this case, really doesn't.
It's just a sobering picture.
Mhm.
The economic lifeline of a nation is hanging by a thread, and that thread is being worn down by security gaps and official silence.
And the clock is absolutely ticking. These decisions can happen very, very quickly. One day the flight is on the schedule. The next day the route is just gone, suspended indefinitely.
Before we finish, I want to come back to something you mentioned about the long-term view. We've talked about the immediate chaos, but what does this look like 5, 10 years from now?
This is the thought I think is really important to sit with. We tend to think of flight suspensions as temporary, like a bad storm that passes. But in this world, in geopolitics and aviation, trust is the one thing you can't just rebuild overnight.
It takes years to build it in the first place.
Decades. Turkish Airlines didn't just decide to fly to Mogadishu on a whim. That was the result of years of diplomatic work and investment. If they leave now because of a formal safety declaration, how long does it take to wash that stain away?
It's not just about fixing the security problem anymore.
No. Even if they make the airport the safest place on Earth tomorrow, that high-risk designation will stay in the databases of insurance underwriters and corporate security firms for years. It could set the country's economic development back a decade. So the question isn't just, will the planes stop? It's, if they leave, when, if ever, will they come back?
And that's the real danger. Walking away is the easy part. Building that bridge back to the world is long, and there's no guarantee of success.
Precisely. And that's what makes the silence from the authorities so deafening right now. They're not just risking a few flights, they're risking a generational setback.
Well, I'll have to keep a very close eye on this one. If you see a major airline suspend its Mogadishu route in the next few weeks, you'll know exactly why it happened.
And you'll know it wasn't a surprise, it was a disaster foretold.
Thank you for breaking all this down. A very heavy, but a very important topic.
My pleasure.
And to all of you listening, thank you for diving deep with us. Keep an eye on the flight boards, because they might be telling a much bigger story very soon. We'll see you on the next one.